Thank you for joining us on History FM Radio on liveparanormal.com and history.fm. From paranormal to the unexplained history, it all happens here. Looking to enhance your radio experience? Participate in live interactive chat 24/7 with our radio show hosts and other like-minded people on www.liveparanormal.com, the only interactive social chat room supported by full interactive media. Stop by now and join in on the fun.
Welcome to the Cajun Ghost Hunter Chronicles. Join me today as I visit Jefferson Island and the Jefferson Mansion, where spirits tell me where the buried treasure of Jean Lafitte is located, and to beware of entering the mansion. They also say the former owner's name during 2 separate sessions and have some unkind remarks about him in both. I will venture to my parents' home on Adoue Street in Houma, Louisiana, where I grew up, and I will play some amazing EVP captured in the house during ambient sessions with no radio sweep. Finally, I will end the show with my visits to my family tomb, where I captured my mother's voice and a profound message from God. I will also play an EVP of disembodied howls from the tomb as I talk to my mother, which is the creepiest EVP anyone would want to hear emanating from their family tomb. Tune in today as I read these interesting chapters from my book. Welcome everyone, as we add another episode to the Cajun Ghost Hunter Chronicles. If you like today's show, be sure to visit my website, www.cajunghosthunter.com, to purchase my book, Paranormal Investigations, The Cajun Ghost Hunter Chronicles. I have links on the left side of the page for Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Trafford. Please enjoy today's show. Chapter 6, Jefferson Island. I travel in Acadiana often and noticed a sign on Louisiana 14 near Delcrum, Louisiana, that said Rip Van Winkle Gardens, along with the days that the Jefferson Island Cafe is open. I have a book, Ghost Along the Bayou by Christine Ward, and saw that the house and the cafe had a chapter in the book. After reading the chapter and doing a little research, I decided to bring Barbara for a day of good eats and ghost hunting on the 25-acre property. Born in 1829, the American actor, artist, author, and architect Joseph Jefferson built the house in 1870 atop a coastal dome on Lake Penier and is now listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Having been called Dupuis Island and Miller's Island in the past, he purchased what was known as Orange Island at the time in 1869, covering 1,200 acres. He especially loved the fine hunting and fishing, along with the relatively mild climate of South Louisiana, for 36 winter respites from the stage. He was famous for playing the role of Rip Van Winkle, made famous from the Washington Irving tale, more than 4,500 times. He also owned a home in Buzzards Bay, Massachusetts, near President Grover Cleveland's summer home. He once even had the president as his guest on Jefferson Island. The heirs of Jefferson sold the house after his death in 1905 to John Lyle Baelish Sr. of Anchorage, Kentucky. In the late 1950s, his heir, John Baelish Jr., began developing the formal gardens that surround the home, thus establishing the Rip Van Winkle Gardens, named after its former actor-owner. It was successfully listed as a national landmark in 1972 with the Department of the Interior and donated in 1978 to the Live Oaks Garden Foundation, a private nonprofit organization. Being fond of the camellia from his visits with his mother to Natchez, Mississippi, while his father hunted on Avery Island, John Jr. developed the gardens using large numbers of camellias in a great many varieties and made them the floral emphasis of his gardens. He won more than 1,000 ribbons in the southern states because of his work with this beautiful southern flower. A hired English horticulturist, Geoffrey Wakefield, landscaped the gardens with a beautiful mixture of camellias, azaleas, crepe myrtles, and other plants in a series of interlocking gardens. Bayless built his dream house on the edge of the lake next to his conservatory and planned to retire there. Unfortunately, he lived there for only 9 months when the disaster struck in November of 1980. A drilling rig operating above the salt dome below the lake pierced one of the giant caverns, and the water in the lake drained into the giant whirlpool that sucked in the drilling rig, and water went into the mines below. As he witnessed the tragic events unfolding below him from the second-floor window of his dream house, Bayless knew it was time to leave when he felt the earth moving below him and immediately evacuated. When he returned, his dream house, the visitor center, and 65 acres of the garden were covered by the waters of the newly expanded lake. The gardens remained closed for the next 4 years, and Bayless died in 1985. The foundation that he endowed sold the property to Dr. Ron Ray and his wife Carolyn Durrell in 1996, and they revitalized the site by offering many ways for the public to enjoy the tradition that Bayless and the foundation started years ago. Durrell closed the property in 2001 after running the property for 5 years. The gardens were sold in October 2003 to the Live Oaks Gardens Limited, which is owned and operated by Mike and Louise Richard. Gardens restoration included removal of debris and restoring the many buildings. These included the Bayless Conference Center, Cafe Jefferson, the Caretaker's House, the Joseph Jefferson Mansion, the cottage, and the servants' quarters. Over the years, there have been many reports of apparitions, ghosts, and other paranormal events on Jefferson Island. One Sunday Times Picayune magazine cover story in 1925 came with an artist's illustration. In it, Mr. Bayless himself tells the story of when he was a child, and he saw a man in a top hat leaning over his bed with one hand on the dresser, but he was floating upward into a glowing light. He said the hounds outside were howling away at the time. There were reports of beds being wrinkled in rooms where no one has been sleeping, mosquito nets being pushed aside as if by an invisible hand, and rocking chairs rocking all by themselves. Even Mike Richard has a story about staying in the house. One night, while acting as the caretaker, he woke up in the middle of the night and saw a glow up on the ceiling in the corner of the room where he was sleeping. He could hear heavy breathing coming from that direction, so he sat up, stayed real still, and watched and listened to it for the next hour. Mike lives in a house next to the main house that he refers to as the camp. One night, his little boy woke up and saw a man looking over the crib of his little sister. The man's feet were not touching the ground, and Mike explains that his son was 7 at the time, but is very realistic and not a dreamer. A repairman named Roy Patut was working at the house one evening at dusk and saw a light on the floor in the dining room as he walked in from the hall. He thought maybe it was light from a car in the parking lot reflecting off a mirror and thought nothing of it. As he was walking away, the light followed him, so he walked to the window to see if someone was outside with a flashlight and playing a trick on him. Only his truck was in the parking lot, and no ray of sunlight was reflecting off the mirrors or windshield of his truck. When he turned to go back into the hall, the light was there as if it had been waiting for him. He then closed all the doors leading into the hallway so that it would be pitch dark, but the light was still there. It then got real cold. There's a Cajun saying that says that when it gets real cold, that's when the ghost appeared to the living. He dashed out of there immediately. He won't say he was terrified, but he didn't close the door on his way out. Some of the old-timers in the vicinity think that the cottage is haunted by a man who died there. Supposedly, he was sitting on his porch in his rocker when he died, and his body remained there for several days before he was discovered. This was at a time before the salt mining operation, and the island was pretty isolated. One day recently, a man went to pick up the waste in the cottage, and after the screen door shut behind him, he heard it open and close again. When he turned around, no one was there. In 1928, there was the discovery of 4 brick boxes with lead covers that were discovered by a work crew digging in an area on the map known as Voodoo Land. A traiteur named Daylight, the foreman, gave the rest of the crew the day off after the discovery, and the next day, Daylight was gone along with the treasure. The coins in the boxes were supposedly treasures from Jean Lafitte and his excursions in the area. It also may have been treasure from the Civil War when the residents buried their valuables to hide them from the invading Union troops. The coins were French, English, and Mexican in origin, and Mr. Bayless was able to buy some of the coins back. Mike has some of the coins in his possession in the house. Tour guides have heard the slamming of doors and footsteps in the upstairs room when they were in the house alone. One tour guide was upstairs cleaning in the camellia room when she looked up and saw a pair of pants like someone standing there. When she looked again, they were gone. 2 sisters, Joyce and Charlene, worked in the Cafe Jefferson. They recall several bizarre activities such as beer bottles crashing to the floor and styrofoam cups spewing all over the room where they were stored. Joyce fled the room when the cups started flying but returned when the activity subsided. Charlene took a picture of 5 employees one evening after work that included Joyce. When the picture was developed, the picture had 6 people in it. Although Joyce was sitting alone, in the picture she appeared to be sitting on the lap of a man who appeared to be Spanish and wearing a goatee. Barbara and I arrived on Jefferson Island around 11:30 a.m. one Sunday morning. We decided to purchase tickets to tour the grounds of the Jefferson House and then made our way to Cafe Jefferson for lunch. After we placed our order, I placed my RT EVP recorder on the table set on FM scan at 50 milliseconds and performed several sessions while sitting there. There were other patrons in the restaurant at the time, but the noise contamination was minimal, and I was able to pick up the spirit voices from the white noise when I processed them the next day. While waiting for our food, I turned the recorder on and occasionally bent over it to ask questions of any wandering spirits. I asked a question about the buried treasure that had been stolen. In this EVP, titled Spanish Road, you'll hear me ask, "Where's the buried treasure?" And Spirit replies, "Spanish Road." And now here is Spanish Road.
Where's the buried treasure? Where's the buried treasure? Where's the buried treasure?
Needless to say, when I processed the CVP and heard the response, I immediately looked up the location of Spanish Road. There is a Spanish Lake Road less than 10 miles away from Jefferson Island near New Iberia. I then asked the spirit if he was a pirate with Jean Lafitte. In this one, titled Pirate Seekers, you will hear me ask, "Were you a pirate with Jean Lafitte?" And Spirit replies, "Pirate Seekers." And now here is Pirate Seekers.
Are you a pirate with Jean Lafitte? Are you a pirate with Jean Lafitte? Are you a pirate with Jean Lafitte?
Remembering what happened to Joyce and Shirlene, I asked the spirits a question about their actions. In this one, titled Kill, you'll hear me ask, "Why do y'all move bottles around and why do you throw styrofoam cups?" And Spirit replies, "Kill." And now here is Kill.
Why do y'all move bottles around? Why do you throw styrofoam cups? Kill. Why do y'all move bottles around? Why do you throw styrofoam cups? Kill. Why do y'all move bottles around? Why do you throw styrofoam cups? Kill.
I asked if Joseph Jefferson was present. A spirit got belligerent with me. In this one, titled Don't You Mess With Me, you'll hear me ask, "Is Mr. Jefferson here?" And Spirit replies, "Don't you mess with me." And now here is Don't You Mess With Me.
Is Mr. Jefferson here? Is Mr. Jefferson here? Is Mr. Jefferson here?
We finished eating and walked around the beautiful gardens. We had to wait about an hour for the tour, and about 15 minutes before it started, we made our way to the house and waited on the porch. While waiting, I performed a few EVP sessions. In this one, titled Hi, you hear me ask, "What is your name?" And Spirit replies, "Hi." And now here is Hi.
What is your name?
Hi.
What is your name?
Hi.
What is your name?
Hi. Unfortunately, not all spirits can remember their names. As time goes on, the memories from their corporeal bodies begin to fade. In this one, titled I Don't Have a Clue, you hear me ask, "What is your name?" And Spirit replies, "I don't have a clue." Now here is I Don't Have a Clue.
What is your name? What is your name? What is your name?
Barbara had been walking around the porch, and when she came up to me, I asked her about the tour, and the spirit had an opinion about the tour guide. In this one, titled Freaky Manager, you'll hear me ask, "Are they ready to give the tour?" And Spirit replies, "Freaky Manager." And now here is Freaky Manager.
You ready to give the tour?
Freaky Manager.
You ready to give the tour?
Freaky Manager.
Although the house was built in the 1870s, I asked if any slaves were present. In this one titled, Any Slaves Around Here? You hear me ask, Any slaves around here? And Spirit replies, Check around here. And now here is, Any slaves around here?
Are there any slaves around here?
Check around here.
Are there any slaves around here?
Check around here.
Are there any slaves around here?
Check around here.
I asked the Spirit if they were a slave. They were affirmative and let me know of their demise. Perhaps they felt like slaves because of the way they were treated. In this one titled, Mr. Pope Beat Me, you hear me ask, Were you a slave? And Spirit replies, Yeah, Mr. Pope, he beat me. And now here is, Mr. Pope beat me.
Were you a slave? Were you a slave? Were you a slave?
While waiting on the porch, I performed another session, and during the session, I picked up a spirit that liked to sing. What's unique about this one is that it was two spirits talking to each other. Was this a female friend of Joseph Jefferson who likes to sing? In this one titled, Layla Liked to Sing, you hear Spirit 1 say, Layla liked to sing, and Spirit 2 says, Shut up, Layla, sing. And then Spirit 1 says again, Above me. And now here is, Layla Liked to Sing. I put my head up against the glass of the front door and let the spirits know that I was about to go in. They had differing opinions about our entry. In this one titled, Enter Here, you hear me ask, Here's your front door. Is anybody inside? And Spirit 1 says, Tin house. And Spirit 2 says, Glass home. And Spirit 3 says, Don't enter it. And the fourth spirit says, Enter here. And now here is, Enter here.
Here's your front door. Is anybody inside?
What? Don't enter.
Here's your front door. Is anybody inside?
What? Don't enter.
Here's your front door. Is anybody inside?
What? Don't enter.
I let them know that we were going to walk through their house. Apparently there was some dislike for the famous actor because they let me know what they thought of Joseph Jefferson. In this one titled, Jefferson is a Pig, you hear me state, We want to walk through your house. And the Spirit replies, Jefferson is a pig. And now here is, Jefferson is a pig.
We want to walk through your house. We want to walk through your house. We want to walk through your house.
Now I don't know if the spirits were joking with me or maybe the famous actor had a role where he was dressed up in a bunny costume. In this one titled, A Big Bad Bunny, you hear me ask, Who lives in this house? And Spirit replies, A big bad bunny lives here. And now here is a big bad bunny.
Who lives in this house? Who lives in this house? Who lives in this house?
Right before we were allowed inside for the tour, I went up to the door and asked if anyone was inside. I received a woman moaning and a warning. In this one titled, Beware, you will hear me ask, Anybody in here? And then you'll hear a moan, and then a voice says, Beware. And now here is, Beware.
Anybody in here? Anybody in here? Anybody in here?
We weren't allowed to take videos or pictures during our tour of the house. I tried to hide my EVP recorder in my pants pocket while touring, but the audio was so contaminated by the tour guide's presentation that no worthwhile voices were captured. However, when we were leaving the grounds at the end of our day, we stopped by the cottage where the man had died on the porch years before and wasn't found for a few days. I performed a short EVP session since we were pressed for time and captured one last good EVP emphasizing the swine-like qualities of Joseph Jefferson. In this one titled, Jefferson's a Big Pig, you'll hear spirits say, Jefferson's a big pig. And now here is Jefferson's a Big Pig. Chapter 14, 114 Adoue Street, home of Hilda Robleski. After my mother died on November 18, 2010, we had to start the succession of her estate. It took a while for my sister to get everything in order so that we could eventually sell my mother's house on 114 Adoue Street in Houma, Louisiana. Her son and my nephew, Randy Hawthorne, had lived there for a couple of years after my mother had gone into the nursing home. That way, the home and property could be kept up to living standards. On August 10, 2011, I had gone by the house and visited with my nephew, Randy, since he was going to be moving out and I wanted to assess what I would need to clean up in the house for the new owners. Randy is somewhat a skeptic on my paranormal work, but he agreed to let me perform an EVP session with him in the living room on that day. During the session, I picked up a couple of intelligent EVPs. In the first one, I asked my mom if she would like to pet Randy's cat that he was holding as I was performing the EVP. A spirit responded that she petted him. In this EVP, titled, I Petted Him, you will hear me ask, Mama, you want to pet this little bitty kitty cat? And spirit replies, I petted him. And now here is, I petted him. Mama, you want to pet this little bitty kitty cat? Mama, you want to pet this little bitty kitty cat? Mama, you want to pet this little bitty kitty cat? The second quality EVP that I captured in this session is very compelling and intelligent. When I told my mother that she would have some new people living there and asked if she was going to miss Randy, she said that I could see her. In this one titled, Stanley Jr. Sees Me, you will hear me say, Mama, you're going to have some new people living here pretty soon. You're going to miss Randy? And Spirit replies, Stanley Jr. sees me. And now here is Stanley Jr. sees me. Mama, you're going to have some new people living here pretty soon. You're going to miss Randy? Mama, you're going to have some new people living here pretty soon. You're going to miss Randy? Mama, you're going to have some new people living here pretty soon. You're going to miss Randy? On August 26, 2011, I went to the house to see if Randy had moved and if there was anything that I needed to bring to my house that he left behind. While there, I conducted a quick session. Randy's dad, Harvey Hawthorne, had died from a massive heart attack at the age of 60. My mother had loved her son-in-law. He used to bring her ducks and speckled trout that she thoroughly enjoyed. During Michael Jordan's last season of playing basketball, Harvey had gone to a game with friends to watch him play in New Orleans. And on the way back, he rode in the back seat and fell asleep. When his friends went to wake him up, they found he had died from a heart attack. In this EVP, you can hear a female spirit say that Harvey is with her. In this one titled, Harvey is with me, you will hear spirit say, Harvey is with me. And now here is, Harvey is with me. Harvey. 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 I went back to the house on August 29, 2011 to clean the house to say my final goodbyes. I did a thorough cleaning and then I proceeded to perform some FM scan and ambient EVPs. I didn't capture too many and only a few with clarity in one session of an FM scan. In this scan, I first captured this reverse speech at the 22-second mark that said I was a faggot. In this one, Spirit says, he's a faggot. And now, here's, he's a faggot. He's a faggot. He's a faggot. He's a faggot. Immediately after that exhortation, at the 24-second mark, I captured an EVP that disputed the previous spirit's claim and said that I was a good man. Was this my mother letting her feelings be known to that other spirit? In this one titled A Good Man, Spirit says, "A good man, Stanley." And now here is a good man. A minute later, I captured this forward reverse speech EVP that was very disturbing. My father, in the last 8 years of his life, was in the middle stages of Alzheimer's disease. My mother was able to care for him, but occasionally he would argue with her and have fits of rage, as most patients exhibit when they reach the later stages. My mother always portrayed strength of character whenever my sister Pat or I would visit them or deliver their groceries. Perhaps this spirit, if my mother, was expressing her fears she experienced while watching my father in one of his rages. In this EVP, the spirit said that Stanley is going to kill her and her face will look bad. In this one titled, Stanley's Going to Kill Me, Spirit says, Stanley's going to kill me. My face will look bad. And now here is, Stanley's going to kill me. I had 3 ambient sessions over there where I captured some data but cannot determine the relevancy to the location. Perhaps they were residual from next door, since my mother had some neighbors that were noisy and had a lot of activity because the grandmother who owned the property helped to raise her grandkids. There was always something going on over there. In the EVPs, it sounds like a young black man talking, since the neighbors next door were Afro-American. I'm only speculating that residual spiritual energy probably migrated to my mother's house from next door. In the first session, there was this EVP where a young man said that Philip was over there drunk. In this one titled Philip's Drunk, Spirit says, Philip's over there drunk? And now here is Philip's Drunk. In the next session, I was sitting on the floor with my back to the wall in the living room. On Saturday mornings, when we were growing up, my siblings and I would have to clean the house while my mom would leave and go visit friends. Peter's job was to vacuum and mop the living room. I figured I would ask Mama if she wanted to have Peter use the old dust mop that I had found in her bedroom closet to clean the room. The answer surprised me, and here's why. My Aunt Blondie had this motorized recliner at her house. She had become debilitated from strokes and had trouble moving around, so Uncle Lee had bought them this recliner that would lift the person sitting in it to a standing position so they could exit the chair without having to try to pull themselves out of it. The process is very, very slow and takes about a minute to get the sitting person to a standing position. It uses a scissor jack principle and lifts the chair way up from horizontal to an almost full vertical position to do it. This motor also makes the chair very heavy. Well, after my aunt died, somehow this chair ended up in the corner of the living room in my mom's house. I don't think the controls for the motor work any longer, and it was never used for that feature, only for sitting. When I asked Mom if she wanted me to get Peter to dust mop the living room, I captured this voice that doesn't sound like a young black man. He said that he was in the damn chair and getting the slow motor. Was there a spirit attached to that motorized chair? What does he mean that he's getting the slow motor? In this one titled, Getting the Slow Motor, you will hear me ask, Mama, you want me to get Peter to dust mop the living room? And Spirit replies, I'm in the damn chair getting the slow motor. And now here is Getting the Slow Motor. Mommy, want me to have Peter come dust mop the living room? Mommy, want me to have Peter come dust mop the living room? Mommy, want me to have Peter come dust mop the living room? I then received this EVP that sounds like an elderly black woman saying that her feelings were hurt and not to play around there. Was this residual from the grandmother next door talking to one of her grandchildren? In this one titled, Don't Play Around Here, Spirit says, My feelings hurt. Don't play around here. And now here is Don't Play Around Here. discussion at my mom's house must be residual from next door. I captured 2 EVPs, with one being the reverse speech of the other, but related. In the forward speech, a spirit said that Billy hit Graham, or Grandma, and the reverse speech is related to the forward speech because the spirit said, ow, and then said that he felt it, like he was the one that was hit. And this one, titled, Billy Hit Graham, you will hear Spirit 1 say, Billy hit Graham, and Spirit 2 says, ow, I feel it. And now here is Billy Hit Graham. You're listening live to History FM on liveparanormal.com, the paranormal's top social community. And now, back to the Cajun Ghost Hunter Chronicles. Chapter 15, the Jolet Tomb. Whenever I went to Laurel Valley Plantation to record my sessions, I usually would stop at the Jolet Tomb, our family tomb, on the way. It is located on Menard Street in Thibodaux, Louisiana. I would go there on Saturday afternoons after Barbara left for work, since I would have the latter part of the afternoon to capture my 3-minute sessions at both places. I sometimes went there on Wednesdays during the summer after I attended my weekly Mass at St. Joseph's Cathedral in Thibodaux, Louisiana. This is the same cemetery for the parishioners of the church. I don't know the history of how my grandfather, Asa Jolet, acquired the tomb. The people buried in it include my mother's grandmother, Marie LeBlanc Dague, her second husband, Clamille Dague, my mother's sister, Odessa Jolet Dague, her husband, Irving P. Dague, son of Clamille, Hilda Jolet Robleski, my mother, Stanley Robleski, my father, and Paul Vaccaro, husband of Peggy Dague Vaccaro and Odessa's daughter. The tomb has 4 slots, 2 on top and 2 on the bottom, all above ground. Under the bottom 2 slots are the crypts where the bones of the dead relatives are placed and their caskets burned afterward in order to make room for the newly deceased relatives. It is specified in the perpetual care agreement with the caretakers that my grandmother, Mabel Guillot Jolet, and my grandfather, Asa J. Jolet, always remain in the top 2 slots of the tomb. The Jolet family was very prestigious in the 15th century. In 1429, members of the family joined forces with Joan of Arc to fight the British at Orleans, France. On May 4th, 1429, the battle began, and by May 8th, Orleans had been taken by Joan's forces. The Battle of Patay on June 18, 1429, turned out to be the deciding factor in the 100 Years' War, and after it, the Dauphin of France, Charles VI, was escorted by Joan to Reims for his coronation. There is much history in the Jolet family. For instance, Louis Joliet was living with his family in Quebec, Canada, and studying to become a Jesuit priest when he met Father Jacques Marquette, originally born in France, and commissioned by the governor of the region to survey the Mississippi River and teach religion to the Indians. They traveled all the way to Greenville, Mississippi, from the Great Lakes region, and left packets of information at each Indian village so that in case anything happened to them, the next surveyor could pick them up. On their way back up north, Father Marquette and Louis had an accident in their canoe and lost all their supplies. They traveled back to Quebec and eventually returned to the Indian village near the site of the accident to retrieve the information that had been left there. When they returned to Quebec, Louis sent papers to the King of France, who granted him a land grant on the St. Lawrence Seaway, which is now an animal sanctuary 139 miles long by 40 miles wide. There is also a statue of Marquette and Joliet in a square in Chicago, dedicated to their explorations in the night they slept in the woods at that location. I started capturing credible EVPs from the tomb on June 18, 2011. I had gone to the tomb that afternoon and performed an FM scan. My father used to get off work on Thursday afternoons for a half day, and during the summertime, my brother Danny and I would lay out the crab nets and the hampers to have the supplies prepared to leave after lunch. In this EVP, I told my father that I had some crab nets and some melt, which is bait, and that we should go down Pontchartrain to catch some crabs. Instead of my father, I picked up the spirit voice with some interference in the middle of the exclamation that sounded exactly like my mother's voice telling me not to quit. I'm not sure exactly why she was telling me this. Perhaps it's because the whole family were quarreling with each other over the settlement of her estate, and she wanted me to not quit loving my sister Pat, who was the executor of the succession. In this one, titled Stanley Jr. Don't Quit, you hear me ask, got some crab nets and the bait out and got some milk. Let's get in the car and go catch some crabs down Pointe-a-Chan, okay? And Spirit replies, oh, Stanley Jr. Don't Quit. And now here's Stanley Jr. Don't Quit.
We got the crab nets and the bait out and got some milk. Let's get in the car and go catch some crabs down Pointe-a-Chan, okay? We got the crab nets and the bait out and got some milk. Let's get in the car and go catch some crabs down Pointe-a-Chan, okay? We got the crab nets and the bait out and got some milk. Let's get in the car and go catch some crabs down Pointe-a-Chan, okay?
On June 25th, 2011, I returned to the tomb after seeing Barbara off to work. Philip had gone freshwater fishing the day before, and I had cleaned up his catch of perch and fried them up for lunch. I started the FM session like I always do by putting my head up against the door of the tomb and telling my mother I was there. A spirit responded that Philip needed her. In this one, titled Philip Needs Me, you hear me say, hello, Mama, it's Stanley Jr. And Spirit replies, Philip needs me. And now here is Philip Needs Me.
Hello, Mama, Stanley Jr. Hello, Mama, Stanley Jr. Hello, Mama, Stanley Jr.
I asked my mother where she was at lunchtime because I had some fried perch. She loved to eat fried perch when I was growing up, especially crunching on the tails after they were fried. A spirit responded that I was back. They recognized me and knew me now that I was visiting them on a regular basis. In this one, titled Stanley Jr.'s Back, you'll hear me ask, where were you at lunchtime? I was having me some fried perch. And Spirit replies, Stanley Jr.'s back. And now here is Stanley Jr.'s back.
Where were you at lunchtime? I was having me some fried perch. Where were you at lunchtime? I was having me some fried perch. Where were you at lunchtime? I was having me some fried perch.
I went to the tomb on July 2nd, 2011, and performed another FM scan. I received 2 responses after I told my mom hello. The first one warmed my heart, and the second one was disturbing. The first response from a spirit told my mom, Hilda, that I loved her. The second response said that Stan was dead. I wondered if it was my mom telling me that my dad, Stanley Sr., was dead also. In this one, titled Hilda, He Loves You, first you hear me say, hello, Mama, it's Stanley Jr., hello, and the spirit replies, Hilda, He loves you. And now here is Hilda, He loves you.
Oh, Mama, it's Stanley Jr., hello. Oh, Mama, it's Stanley Jr., hello. Oh, Mama, it's Stanley Jr., hello.
In this one, titled Stan Dead, you'll hear me say again, hello, Mama, it's Stanley Jr., hello, and Spirit replies, Stan Dead. And now here is Stan Dead.
Oh, Mama, it's Stanley Jr., hello. Oh, Mama, it's Stanley Jr., hello. Oh, Mama, it's Stanley Jr., hello.
I asked my mom if she was happy in there with Daddy, and a spirit replied that I was back again. In this one, titled Happy with Daddy, you hear me ask, are you happy in there with Daddy? And Spirit replies, Stanley Jr.'s back. And now here he is, Happy with Daddy.
Are you happy in there with Daddy? Are you happy in there with Daddy? Are you happy in there with Daddy?
I returned to the Jolet tomb on July 9th, 2011, and performed another FM scan. We had been having disputes within the family over my nephew, Randy, moving out of my mom's house so that we could sell it. He was having problems locating a new place to live, and arguments were occurring among my siblings and me. We had received word from Randy that he had found a place to live in Bayou Blue, and that he would be moving soon. When I told my mom that we might be getting Randy out of the house next month, I captured this angelic voice that told me that God heard the subject and for us to make more love. I found that statement so profound and captivating. In this one titled, Let's Make More Love, you will hear me tell Spirit, we might finally get Randy out your house next month. And Spirit replies, God heard subject, let's make more love. And now here is, Let's Make More Love.
You might finally get Randy out your house next month. You might finally get Randy out your house next month. You might finally get Randy out your house next month.
As I was preparing to leave, I asked the spirits if there was anything they wanted to tell me. A spirit said that I was her Stanley and that she loved me. And this one titled, Hi Stanley, you hear me ask, is there anything you want to tell me before I leave? Anybody? And Spirit replies, Hi Stanley, I love you. And now here is, Hi Stanley.
Is there anything you want to tell me before I leave? Anybody? Is there anything you want to tell me before I leave? Anybody? Is there anything you want to tell me before I leave? Anybody?
I went to the tomb on July 23, 2011 and performed an FM scan. As you can see from the dates that I'm posting, I was visiting the tomb weekly. This was my last visit until after my Las Vegas vacation at the end of the month. I captured one very prolific message during this session telling me that Jesus Christ will come. Was this residual from one of the priests buried in the cemetery? In this one, Spirit says Jesus Christ will come. And now here is Jesus Christ will come. After my vacation, I finally made it back to the tomb on August 20th, 2011. I performed an ambient EVP session with no FM scan. It was late in the evening, and you can hear cicadas singing in the background noise. In the first EVP that I captured, I heard the spirit that sounded like my mother. My Aunt Blondie, Althea Jolet Dewey, had suffered a series of strokes, and at one point in time, my mom was her power of attorney. So it was appropriate that I would hear the spirit in this EVP say that they were talking for Blondie. In this one, Spirit says, I'm talking for Blondie. And now here is, I'm talking for Blondie. I next received these spirits telling me that I seem gay and that I sleep around. In this one, Spirit 1 says, you seem gay. And Spirit 2 says, you sleep around. And now here is, you seem gay. At the end of this EVP session, I had my head resting against the nameplate on the front of the tomb when I picked up these creepy, disembodied howls that seemed to emanate from the tomb. When I processed this session and heard these howls, it reminded me of the mythological three-headed dog Cerberus guarding the gates of the underworld so that wandering souls could not escape. And this one is titled Disembodied Howls. And here are the disembodied howls. On October 29, 2011, I had made arrangements with my sister Patricia Pat Beacom to go to the tomb, to place some flowers for our relatives and parents since All Saints' Day on November 1, 2011 was forthcoming. I brought my equipment with me and figured that with Pat there, we could capture some good EVPs. Pat and I used to take turns bringing my parents their groceries on Saturdays when they were both alive. After my mother broke her hip and was placed in a nursing home, we would take turns tending to my mother's needs. Pat was my mother's power of attorney and executor of the estate, so she had to give more of her time caring for her in the nursing home. For that, I am forever grateful. I started an FM scan EVP session when Pat went up to the nameplate, knocked, and asked if anyone was home. A spirit replied that they were home. In this one titled, They Home, you hear Pat ask, is anybody home? And spirit replies, they home. And now here is They Home.
Anybody home? They home. Anybody home? They home. Anybody home? They home.
A minute later, when I asked my mother to tell her daughter that she loved her, a spirit graciously replied that Hilda loved Patricia. How intelligent and responsive. Was this my mother directly answering? Instead of saying I, the spirit said Hilda, so was she identifying who was speaking? In this one titled, Hilda loved Patricia, you will hear me say, Mama, tell your daughter you love her. And spirit replies, Hilda loved Patricia. And now here is Hilda loved Patricia.
Mama, tell your daughter you love her. Mama, tell your daughter you love her. Mama, tell your daughter you love her. Mama, tell your daughter you love her.
I captured this final EVP in the session. I was telling Pat how the spirits talk about Philip at my house all the time, and a spirit can be heard saying that it was their favorite ghost house. In this one titled, My Favorite Ghost House, you'll hear me say, they talk about Philip at my house, and Pat says, what? And spirit replies, my favorite ghost house. And now here is My Favorite Ghost House.
They talk about Philip at my house. Or they were so worried about Philip. They talk about Philip at my house. Or they were so worried about Philip. They talk about Philip at my house. Or they were so worried about Philip.
I visited the tomb on December 17, 2011 and performed an FM scan. I captured one quality EVP from a female spirit. After I told my mother I was there, the spirit said for me to get her paper. This may have been my mother. Sometimes when I went to her house, as I was opening the door, she would tell me from her rocker to go get her newspaper that would be either in her driveway or her yard. In this one titled, Get My Paper, you will hear me say, Hello, Mama, it's Stanley Jr. And spirit replies, Get my paper, Junior. And now here is Get My Paper.
Hello, Mama, it's Stanley Jr. Hello, Mama, it's Stanley Jr. Hello, Mama, it's Stanley Jr.
My visits to the tomb became less frequent in 2012. Since I was contacting spirits at other sites and capturing quality evidence, there wasn't any reason to continue trying to contact the dead at my parents' tomb. I went to the tomb on March 12, 2012, and captured one FM scan EVP where a spirit asked me how Philip was doing. In this one, titled How's Philip, spirit says, How's Philip? And now here is How's Philip? Harold and I went to the tomb on October 28, 2012. Although we have perpetual care for the tomb, it is still the practice of Catholics to go to the graves of their loved ones prior to Halloween and paint the grave sites in preparation for All Saints' Day on November the 1st. Since Harold is a professional painter, we hired him to perform this task annually, and this was his first time doing it. I went with him to show him where it was located and to assist. Of course, I had to perform some EVPs while we completed our task. In the first FM session, I asked my mother if she knew Harold's name as he was painting behind the cross on top of the tomb. A spirit responded correctly, saying both his first and last name. In this one titled, That's Harold Chauvin, you'll hear me say, That's Barbara's brother back there. You know his name? And spirit replies, That's Harold Chauvin. And now here is That's Harold Chauvin.
That's Barbara's brother back there. You know his name? That's Barbara's brother back there. You know his name? That's Barbara's brother back there. You know his name? I
then received this EVP from a spirit that said Aunt Blondie. I previously described my mother's affection for her sister Blondie. Perhaps this was Mama calling out to her. And here is Spirit saying, Aunt Blondie. For the final FM scan EVP, I asked my mom if she would like some pizza. A spirit replied that they would like a great big slice. And this one titled Great Big Slice, you hear me ask, would you like some pizza? And spirit replies, Great Big Slice. And now here is Great Big Slice.
Would you like some pizza? Would you like some pizza? Would you like some pizza?
I performed an ambient EVP while Harold was painting on top of the tomb. I picked up a couple of EVPs. The first one was a spirit who told me to pray for Mommy. And this one, Spirit says, pray for Mommy. And now here is Pray for Mommy. The last EVP that I captured and published for this book finalizes my research and presentation of my data. A spirit said that they could hear my voice. How appropriate, because now I can hear them too. And now here is Spirit saying, we can hear a voice.
Thanks for tuning in today, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed my recounts of my visits to Jefferson Island and my family tomb in Thibodaux, Louisiana. I will close the show today with my rendition of The Way We Were. Have a good weekend, everybody, and God bless. Welcome.
This is my last show on Life Paranormal. I hope you enjoyed my guests and my book readings. I want to thank Rob Zarek and the crew of LifeParanormal.com for hosting these episodes of the Cajun Ghost Hunter Chronicles. And thanks so much to all who have been guests on my show. And a special thanks to all of my listeners. Good luck, peace, and God bless.